Gentlemen, I think you might have already, but if not, could everyone please give State Representative Tram a warm NAMS AP welcome?
Thank you.
So, I totally agree with what we did with Senator DeZoglio. Tram is going to just do a couple talking points, kind of at the beginning, an icebreaker, and then the Q&A format is just so awesome. Thank you all for that suggestion. It's making the day so much better. So could I have my icebreaker people, could you do the same thing, pass it along? Would you mind doing that? Tram's got some cool answers too, just like Diana did, so I think you guys are gonna like this.
What was your favorite subject in 8th grade?
I loved math. I thought that I was going to be a mathematician. I thought that I was going to just pursue everything math and history. I love just learning about history, and we can talk more about that.
What was your least favorite subject in 8th grade?
So in the other classroom, and just before now, I had to ask you what's being learned in 8th grade a while ago. But I think, interestingly, I went to, I didn't like science all that much, but I didn't really have a least favorite subject because I loved school. I was a straight A student and I just loved everything about school until college when I realized that, wow, that's why I didn't like science. I'm not really good at it.
Your first concert. What was your first?
J-Lo. That's
I
right.
like that one.
Favorite restaurant?
Have you guys been to Jade? Just like down the street. My new favorite restaurant here in town. I try to go maybe once a week. Maybe that's excessive, I don't know.
Coolest place that you went on vacation?
So I think Mr. McGraven might have told you I immigrated here from Vietnam when I was 5 years old. And so when I was in college, I went back and to visit my family. But the best trip was back just 3 years ago in 2016, where my whole family went back to Vietnam together to attend my cousin's wedding. That was the first time that my parents had ever been back since we've been here in '92, so that's 24 years. And it was such an incredible experience just to see them reconnect with family, but also, if you have not seen some of the spots in Vietnam, look it up. Ha Long Bay, it's just gorgeous. We were out in the ocean in Ha Long Bay, the bay, for on a boat for 4 days, and the views were just phenomenal.
The most impressive person that you have met because of civics.
Have you guys heard of the Supreme Court? Have you heard of Justice Sotomayor? She came to Tufts just last month, and I was invited to meet her as a state representative and got to shake her hand and got to ask a lot of questions. It was really exciting as an attorney. You know, you read their cases and you admire them from afar, but to have that experience was really incredible.
If you weren't in civics, what would your career be?
I was an attorney. I still am an attorney. I'm just not practicing at this time, and I loved my job. I worked, I helped seniors, veterans, people with disability, a lot of students with disabilities, victims of domestic violence, and others. And so if I were not in elected office, I would really continue that work. But that was the job that prompted me to then run for office. So hopefully I'll be able to find a balance and do both.
Finish the statement. Civic is important and should be taught in schools
Because your voice matters. Your voice, you need to talk to your elected officials. You need to make sure that we hear what you care about. Civics is a tool for you to learn that. Civics is a way for you to understand your rights and how to make sure that that we are representing the things that matter to you and what you care about. And so you're already a leg up from others who might not know how government works, who might not know how to make sure that your rights are being protected. And so we should all give Mr. McGravy and all your teachers and principals and school administrators this opportunity to give you this class so that you know your elected official. So you know you turn to us if you ever need anything and how we can be helpful to you. And so that's why civics matter. But we should give a round of applause to Mr. McGravy and others here who do so much to make this happen for all of you all. Any other icebreaker questions?
Were there any other icebreakers? Did you get through all the letters?
Yes, that's all.
Okay. All right, so do you want me to just go in?
Go through your format just like you did before. That would be great.
That's great, yes. So first of all, I'm so glad to be here. We were just talking earlier in the other classroom. I think some of the students were interested in how I got into politics in the first place. And so I'm just gonna start with that, and perhaps we can open it up to questions. Sound good? All right. So as I was saying to you, I represented a lot of different clients in the courtroom. So a lot of people who come to me, whether it's a victim of domestic or survivor of domestic violence wanting to get protection for her himself and their children, or seniors who need help with housing and other issues. And in working on and helping my clients, I realized that it's gratifying to help people one case at a time in the courtroom, but because I was working with people on a day-to-day basis, I saw how there are gaps in the law that really we could address to make sure that we are giving them more opportunities and resources that they need to be in our community. And so I started also working on policy. And some of the policy, some of the things I worked on were earned income tax credit, for instance. Does anyone know what that is? Sure, I can explain that. So earned income tax credit is basically for working people, you get a tax credit for certain things. And for me, I realized that working people needed additional earned income tax credit to care for their families and their children. And so I advocated for that. And one of the frustrating things I found out during that time when I was advocating for these bills was that I tried to reach out to my own representative at that time for 2 years. So imagine this. I live right in, where Merrimack College is? Yeah. So I live right on the other side of Merrimack College, right at the border of Andover and North Andover, but I'm on the Andover side. And so I'm in the community. I try to find my rep in the community, couldn't find him to talk to him about this. I wrote letters, I called, I even showed up at the State House to try to talk to him about these bills that I was working on, and he didn't meet with me. That is something that I really pay attention to now that I'm in this office, because I think that you can't truly represent the people without listening to the people, without giving them access to you, being available and accessible so that they can give their opinions and so that they can voice their concerns. And I can tell you, I don't agree with people 100% of the time. Who can? Like, how many people are here? 60 people? 60 students here? Do you guys agree with one another 100% of the time? Probably not, right? And that's okay. You still get along. Is that right? For the most part, I hope so. And that's a beauty of discussion. That it's fine to disagree, and it's fine to talk about things that you may not be on the same page about. But you need to be able to even have these discussions. I'm very committed to making sure that I'm hearing both people who agree with me and don't agree with me, so I can really think through the policy and think about how they affect the people. And one of the interesting things about having these discussions is that they're necessary to make informed decision. And so during the election last year, I got elected back in November of last year and got into office in January. I tried to debate my opponent, and again, he refused to meet with me for a debate. How can voters have the opportunity to hear the two of us talk about policy if we don't debate? And so when all of this played out, I had to go door to door to talk to people, to really let them know why I was the better candidate for this position. And in doing that work, I realized that the power of conversation is that you find more commonalities than differences when you actually sit down and have conversations about the things that are important to you. And that's exactly what you're learning in this class. Civic engagement is exactly that, having these very important conversations and really understanding that you matter, and that the policies that we're trying to put in place that affects you every single day. You guys realize we're working on getting a new middle school. So unfortunately, because you're 8th graders, you're not going to benefit from this middle school, but maybe you have younger siblings who will come here. These are the things that we're talking about every single day. Just last week, I gave my first speech on the House floor about the education bill. We're putting $1.5 billion, that's billion with a B, into the public school system in our state so that students like you have the resources that you need to succeed. And I can't even tell you how unnerving that was to, have you ever been to the State House, any of you?
Has anyone here ever been to the State
Yeah,
House?
great. Have you seen the House of Representatives, the big chamber? So I'm standing there with a podium similar to this, and you're looking out. You have 159 others of my colleagues, and the cameras are rolling, and that was my first time. But I was so excited to talk about this education bill because we have not done anything like remotely like this in a very, very long time. The last time we talked about educational reform was back in 1993. Before any of you were born. And so to be able to be a part of this legislature, to talk about that, and to work to make sure that we're putting more money into public education so that teachers and your principals and superintendents have what they need to give you this education to be successful later on was just a phenomenal experience. And so I am so glad that I decided to run for office. I'm so glad that I represent the 18th Essex District, which includes not only North Andover, but also Andover, Boxford, and Tewksbury. So you can imagine how different these communities are. I'm pretty sure many of you probably haven't even been to Boxford, have you? Even though it's across the way here. I know I haven't before I got into office, and so that's why it's even more important for me to be in the communities because the needs and the different things that people care about in the 4 towns are just so different. And so during my election, I door knocked every single door twice before the get out the vote weekend. And that's not just me. I was very fortunate that I had hundreds of volunteers coming out. Many of them are also students, mostly high school and college students, helping me to door knock to get the word out. But that is the best part of the job, is to see the people, talk to the people, hear about the things that they care about, and making sure that they know where to turn to. So now I have very regular office hours. Every single month I have office hours within the 4 towns to make sure that people know where to find me. And I'm very active on social media as well to keep people informed of the different things that are impacting us each and every day. And I'm sure you know, because you are in a civics class, that politics and bills and policies do affect you every single day. Just this week, we had to deal with the Merrimack River. There was a Boston Globe article that basically exposed that there's that potentially we could be accepting water from a treatment plant that has some toxins in it, and within just 24 to 48 hours, we as a state delegation worked with the local community to put a stop to that, to do more testing to make sure that it's safe for the people. But we didn't know about this until the people started reaching out to us to say, have you seen this article? What are you going to do about it? And that's why your voice matters, because so many people reached out. We worked on it just day and night for 24 to 48 hours to make sure that we address it right away. And so don't ever think that your voice does not count, because it sure does. And we want to hear from you.
And I just want to interject here. Remember, I don't know if you remember in class, I told you Tram had an awesome story how she got elected, and she kind of told it very modestly. So I'm going to tell the story. And I want you guys to just hear this. So I think you all heard Tram, as a lawyer, needed some help, needed to reach out to her state representative, and he wasn't really getting back to her, wasn't really returning calls, and so Tram thought it would be, a good idea that maybe she could get involved a little bit more, and with support of friends and family, they convinced her to run for governor for the first time in her life. She tried to debate this person. They did not want to debate her. She turned around and she defeated him. So the man that kind of blew her off and didn't listen to her, she defeated and took away his seat. You don't think that's an amazing story? Really? You don't think that's a great story? The person that blows you off, you do it. Thank you.
I need to bring him with me and all my men to talk me up. Because
I want to make a movie of that. I just think it's the coolest civic story I've heard. I just think, okay, you guys aren't as excited as me. I'm a civic geek, though. I'm going to shut up and let Rob keep going, all right?
Thank you for that. And on that note, I'm going to open it up to questions about what I do. Who actually here knows what a state representative does? Anyone wants to take a crack at
That
it?
has not come up in the class yet, but they might have some background.
Come on, you guys just throw something out. That's fine. What do you think? What do you think I do?
Do you represent the people's voices and you like translate it to the state house?
Yeah, I represent the people's voice in the district and bring that voice to the State House to make sure that whatever bill we work on reflects the things that we care about here. So for instance, with the education bill, the things that when we were talking to the superintendent and other school administrators, they wanted us to make sure that we get in transportation for special education because that's a huge cost here. And that was what we brought back to the State House, and they included that in with the education bill in that $1.5 billion. So I would not know that that's a need until someone told me, and that's why we work very closely with the towns to make sure that we reflect things that they need. Great answer. What else do you think I do every day? Go ahead.
Do you talk to the senators and converse with them about new bills and that?
Absolutely. So every single session, a session is a 2-year session, we have 6,000 to 7,000 bills filed. And so, number one, I have not read all of them, in case anyone's wondering. I don't think any legislator has the time to read all of them, which is also why it's important for us to hear from you about the bills that you care about, because I'm not going to be able to work on all 6,000 to 7,000 bills, absolutely not. So I would work on bills that I know would affect this community. I work on bills where I have a background. So like I said, I was an attorney. I worked on different areas of law. So I know what bills would affect some of those, the clients I had before. So I pay attention to those bills. I pay attention to bills that that people in the community have reached out to me about, and that's why I encourage you and your to go back to tell your families if there are things that you care about, reach out so that I know to sort through these bills of what to prioritize, because there's no way anyone could work on all 6,000 to 7,000 bills all at once. And so we certainly collaborate. Like I said, I collaborate very closely with local elected officials. I also collaborate, you have heard from Senator DiZoglio, there's another senator, Senator Tarr, and Representative Minicucci. I think she's coming later on in the year. But the 4 of us work together to represent North Andover, and I do the same for the other communities that I represent. And we also work with the federal government pretty often. The gas explosion that just happened, that was huge, and we're still dealing with that even over a year later. And so this is a collaboration at all different levels of government to make sure that we are working for the people here in this district. Anything else? What do you think I do? Yeah?
Are there more than one state representative?
Oh yeah, sure. But there are 160 state representatives in our state. Yes. But these are state representatives. So I don't know if you're thinking of maybe the federal level. There are 9 of them for this to represent our state at the federal level. So we have 9 U.S. House of Representatives and 2 U.S. Senators. Here in Massachusetts, we have 160 state representatives and 40 state senators. And all of us do work together because there are 351 towns and cities in Massachusetts, and they divide it up. We each represent about 40 to 45,000 people. Yes.
Something that I always think about must be so difficult for politicians. You have to balance the need to be reelected.
Yes.
Over a short period of time.
Yes.
Again, state reps are
2 years.
Every 2 years.
Correct.
You are up for election.
Correct.
And if you are campaigning for a year,
Yeah.
that means every other year you're campaigning to be reelected.
Yes.
And you have to balance
Yeah.
what you know to be right,
Yes.
what you want to achieve,
Yeah.
and what your constituents want.
Yeah.
So if your communities want something,
Yeah.
but you don't totally agree,
Yeah.
then it's hard. Like, what do you do? How do you balance that? And now let me add another layer,
Yeah.
which is you have to get other representatives to see things the same way in order to vote
Yep.
for something that's so important.
Right.
So I see the job of constantly balancing all needs, doing what's right, being
Absolutely.
reelected, and gathering support for something so important. How do you do it?
So, first of all, this is why some people stay in this position for a very long time. It's not, I mean, of course, we want to get reelected, but some people continue to stay on because there are bills that we want to get through that are just not getting through. So with 6,000 to 7,000 bills filed each year, only about 300 actually get passed, right? So the process is slow deliberately because we should know, we should have all the research, we should have the time to talk to our communities to see where they stand on that, but most of the bills don't even get to a vote for a reason, because they're new bills and there are just 160 of us to try to, corral to agree on one topic. And so that's why it takes a lot of time to get to, that's why it's so important to take the time to get to know our colleagues. And that has been one of the most fascinating thing about this job, is to understand where my colleagues are coming from, because there are 159 others I have to work with, and in getting to know their communities and getting to know their backgrounds, I have a better understanding of why they have an issue with the particular bill that I have, and that's how we can work together to address those issues, right? And even as a first-time representative, I've worked on bills, but I can say that none of my bills are perfect. I put a bill out there, I'll just take a bill, for instance. I have a bill to try to help adults with disability try to find better employment. And in talking with experts, I'm already finding things that I need to change with the bill. And so the conversations help inform that, so that next session I can file a better bill. And that's why we need to work hard to get reelected to work on these bills. To your first question, I haven't had an instance yet where the community even solidly stand on one issue, because there are 4 towns and there are so many different people and different voices coming from the town. My job is to listen to all these voices and then make a decision based on all the information I have on what I think is best for the town. So I don't consider that necessarily going against the town, because I could be siding with a lot of the people in town. There has just never been an instance where I've seen that everyone is for one thing, ever. Thus far. And I've only been in office for 10 months.
And just one follow-up
Yes.
comment. One of the things that I find to be so frustrating is in positions where you're being reelected every 2, 4,
Yeah.
6 years,
Yeah.
it's very hard to do anything that will take many, many years
Yeah.
to see the fruits of your labor, because you might not be there long enough.
Yes.
So we're looking at the short-term fixes
Yes.
as opposed to long-term. And
Yes.
changes long-term.
Yes. No, and I share that frustration with you, especially because prior to getting elected, I was an advocate, and there was a bill that I worked on that took 14 years. I only got to work on it the last 4, but other people have worked on it 10 years before. So I got the benefit of seeing it passed, whereas others are no longer here. And that is, unfortunately, is our government. It does move more slowly, because there's no way we could, we should not be passing 6,000 bills every year anyway. Or the education bill, which, since 92, or 93 rather. All right, so I'm going to open it up to questions, concerns, thoughts. Yes?
What kind of schooling did you have?
Good question. So I went to Tufts University for my undergrad degree. I interestingly went there on a pre-med program. I thought I was going to be a doctor. Couple of things to remember from this. Number 1, it's okay if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up yet. You have a lot of time. B, even if you do know, it's okay if it changes later on. So for me, my whole life since I was 5 years old, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician, because I love kids and I wanted to help people. I knew that was a way to do it. So I got into Tufts. I knew I wanted to go to the medical school, but I took all these classes. I bring it to the point earlier. I was terrible at science. I realized that going in, I was not good at labs. None of these classes, I was struggling so much with them. And that's okay. It's just as important for you to learn what you're good at as well as what you're not good at, because then you can then move on to finding things that you are good at. And what I realized I was good at was political science classes, American studies, sociology, psychology. These are the classes that really I was passionate about and fascinated me. And so I started pursuing those classes, and then I realized, oh, maybe I should get an internship working for legal services. Has anyone heard what legal services is? So essentially, legal services is technically a law firm, but they're a nonprofit. And so we help really vulnerable people who have nowhere else to turn. They are low income and they have no resources to, afford attorneys. So we represent them in court. And when I got that internship in my undergrad, I was fascinated with it. Truth be told, never thought I was going to go to law school. All I knew about lawyers were things that I saw in SVU. Who watches SVU? So I just didn't know what lawyers did, but then I took that internship and was blown away with the things that they were able to do, the people that they were able to help, the policy work that they were able to work on. And so I decided that I wanted to go to law school, and I went to Northeastern Law School. So after Northeastern Law School, I went right to that law firm and got a job, the legal services, and got the job there. And then I've been there ever since, and then I got reelected and I had to leave that position.
What do you do if you have any free time in your spare time?
I play tennis. I love reading. I also love to sing. For for law school, I sang for a couple of bands on the weekends to make extra money. Good question. Yes?
Now that more people are coming to the towns that you manage and stuff,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do about if there's overpopulation?
Oh, what do you mean overpopulation? Like if it goes over the 40 to 45,000 people that I represent. So we have redistricting every 10 years. And so that's how they do it. So actually that brings me to a very important point that I need you to remember and bring home to your families. Who here has heard of the Census 2020? Anyone? Great, I see a couple of hands. Excellent. So that's coming up. I was fortunate enough to work on Census 2010, 10 years ago. Right after college, I was on a team of people to try to go into communities and educate people on the importance of the census to try to get more people to participate in the census. So number one, that's how we find out about the population, and you're 100% correct. Essex County is one of the fastest growing counties in our state. So we're getting a lot more people, and most likely my district will look very different after the Census 2020 is done, because they'll take away some precincts so that I'm not representing more people than that allotted amount. And so it's very important for you to go home and send this message to your families. Census 2020 is coming up on the deadline's April 1st. And for every person that we do not count, we lose up to $3,400 from the federal government. So federal government gives us aid to our state based on our population. And so for any person not counted, that's money we're not going to be getting. But also representation, we were talking about federal U.S. House of Representatives. We have 9 now. We used to have 10, but because of the population, not enough people participated in 2010, we lost 1 seat. That's 1 less voice in Washington for us. So we don't want that to happen again. So we want to make sure everyone participates in the census. Yes. I saw, yep.
What is the Census 2020?
Oh, Census 2020. So every 10 years, the federal government does a count to see who lives in our different communities. And so the census is basically, it's by household. One person just lists out how many people live here, and that's a count of their community. And so remember to remind your parents that that's coming up. Yes?
What are some of the most important bills you think you've helped to pass?
So I haven't passed any bills yet because I've only been in office for 10 months. And as you've heard, some bills take years and years and years and years. But some of the bills I'm working on now that I'm looking to push through are so I care very deeply about environmental issues. So we're working to make sure that we transition to 100% renewable, hopefully by 2035, but at the latest 2050. We're also looking on environmental protection. Just this week, we had the issue with the Merrimack River that I mentioned earlier. We want to make sure we have clean water. We want to make sure that we're talking about, we're working together with environmental groups to protect our environment, our earth. I care deeply about the opioid crisis. So I have a couple of bills that I'm signed on to address that issue. I'm on the committee, the Mental Health, Substance Use and Recovery Committee, to try to address that very issue. Education has always been a priority of mine, and we're so excited. We're very close to getting it signed by the governor. We just passed it in the House unanimously just last week. And when talking about making sure that we are giving resources to the people who need it, my background is working with helping veterans, people with disability, and seniors. And so I have a couple of bills that address that very issue. But I also did a lot of employment law too. So some of my bills relating to making sure working families have the resources that they need. We are, our state's doing very well in terms of how our economy is doing. So we have less than 3% unemployment rate. But that could change any time. So I have a bill that addresses unemployment and to make sure that people can get access to that easier if our economy were to change. I also have bills to just address protection overall, gun safety. That has been in the forefront for all of us here at the state, but hopefully the federal government will kind of follow us. We're the leader in the country in terms of gun safety, and we want to make sure that we're addressing those issues. Are there particular issues that you're interested in?
No, it's just
Yeah. Well, are there actually, that I want to open up to, are there particular issues or topics that you guys are paying attention to or you're interested in or you're seeing in the news that you want to get more updates on? I'm sure you have something.
gun control.
Yep, gun safety, absolutely, to make sure that we protect you all, especially in the schools here. And that's something we're working on actively, and we want to make sure, like I said, that the federal government follows our example. Anything else? Yep.
LGBT rights.
100%. Making sure that we actually passed a bill this year, conversion therapy. We just banned that in our state, which is, I think that as someone who has worked my entire career to make sure that we're creating an inclusive and welcoming community for all, that is absolutely something that I'm committed to doing. And I've gone to all the different GSAs and other organizations in the schools to try to talk to the students about that. Would love to come here if you have one, and I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Yes.
Do you have like allies in the community?
Yes, and that was how I got elected. You have to have allies. You have to work with people. There's no way I could have won this election on my own. There's no way I could do this job on my own. I have to work with local elected officials because I want to know about the issues that affect them. I need to work with constituents and local community groups to make sure that I'm thinking about a bill and in a more informed way, because I have different people advising me on how to, on the different things to keep an eye out for. And so, yes, this job is definitely a community job. You will never see me sitting in a room by myself looking at a bill. If I'm looking at a bill, of course, I can read on my own, but you'll see me calling folks like, I don't understand this part of the bill. Can you tell me how this will affect our community or what I'm missing here? And I think that that's the best part about this job. Thanks. Yeah?
Is there anything different about, or more unique about this town compared to other towns that you live at?
Oh, all towns are unique in their own way. How the government, how the local government works. All the 4 towns in my district, we all have the board of selectmen or the select board in Andover's case, and school committees. But how the elected officials work together with the different groups are all very different. And I love the fact that this town is just so active. There's so many activities and a lot of engagement opportunities. And as you can see here, Mr. McGravy makes sure that that elected officials come in to talk to you. So that's pretty unique, and I'm going to try to replicate this in other towns. Yep, go ahead. How old was I when I became a citizen? So I came here in '92. I was 5 years old. I became a citizen in '98 when my parents naturalized. '98, yes. So I was 12 years old. I'm doing the math correctly, yes. Anyone else? Questions, concerns? Come on, I heard you guys were really active this morning.
You guys were begging me to get more time for questions.
I know, in the other class, the questions came nonstop.
I had to cut the other class off.
I know. I'm sure you have questions that you want to ask.
I can think of one. Oh, there's one over there, and then I can have one as well.
For public schools, do you think that we should have like smaller classes?
Yes. That's exactly why we're putting more money into the school system, because we want your teachers and your principals and all the school administrators to have the resources that they need to perhaps allow for that. Absolutely. Yes.
What is your greatest achievement, and what is your biggest goal, the thing you want to accomplish the most?
In terms of in this position, the achievement for this position. So I'm the very first Vietnamese American woman to ever get elected in the history of Massachusetts when I got elected here. So that is an achievement that I'm very proud of. And I'm also the very first Asian American woman to be on the board of directors for the Caucus for Women Legislators. And so being a first is both very rewarding, but also a responsibility for me to try to open more doors. We only have 28% women elected in the State House out of 200 people, 28% out of the State House, and I think that representation really truly matters. And so I'm working to make sure that we do that, increase different voices at the State House. And a lot of things I want to work on. I have about 20 bills that I filed on my own and about 300 bills that I co-sponsored that I'm really pushing for, and that goes back to the other questions of why it's so important for me to get to know my colleagues and really get to know how to better work with them to work on these bills and get them through. Good question. Thank you.
Question over. Did you have a question? You got an answer to it.
Yes.
So I'll get that question and I'll interject when there's a little bit of a lull.
Yeah.
What's the most controversial bill that you've ever passed?
So I personally haven't bills that I've worked on that has passed. So I've only been in office for 10 months. Like I said, bills don't take that. They don't pass that quickly. But in terms of controversial bills that I'm dealing with now, the conversion therapy ban was a controversial bill that that we took up, and you know what? It's the right thing to do to make sure that we are working with the LGBTQ community. But also right now, women's reproductive health is a very controversial issue, and I'm very much committed to making sure that women have access to safe and legal abortion. Yes.
Do you still work with private schools, even though indoors?
Say that again?
Do you still work with private schools?
We do work with them, even though we don't give them funding. They are in the community, and I've gone to the private schools to speak to them, to engage the students, because we want everyone to be engaged at all the schools, and I want to make sure that they know that I'm their representative, even though we don't actually give funding to the schools. But they've also come to the State House, and I extend this invitation to all of you. If anyone wants to come to the State House, reach out to my office. I'm happy to set something up. We want you to come in because the State House is the people's house. And we want people to know that you can come there anytime. And we want to encourage you to come in there. We want to see you there. So let us know. Mm-hmm.
I know you said you've been in-house for 10 months now.
Mm-hmm. Since January.
Has it been stressful? An excessive amount of stressful?
Good question. It is a very, it's a very much a full-time job. I work 7 days a week, and we have evening events. So you see that the senator and other reps, we're very close because we see each other all the time. We were just, at 2 events together last night. I came home. You guys all know Fritz from your class, 8th grade, yeah? So his mom is a Representative Minakuchi, who is my counterpart. We together, we're 2 reps representing North Andover. And we were together last night until 9 o'clock, and both of us were out the door this morning at 8, and we have so many events on the weekends, because the weekends are the time when we are in the community to try to go to different community events and say hi to people, make sure they know that we're there. So yes, it is a stressful job, but very rewarding too, because I get to meet so many incredible people that I wouldn't have access to otherwise. But I was talking to, in the other class, one of the most stressful things are emails. That keep coming in. And so to try to balance all that and try to make sure that we are doing our administrative work but also being in the community, it is stressful, but you know what? This job is, it gives a lot of opportunities for me to get to know my community, and I think that that's been one of the best things this past year, is that prior to getting elected, I worked as an attorney, and you can imagine my job was not 9 to 5. I worked in Boston, so every morning I could take that long commute into Boston, then by the time I get home it's 8, 9 o'clock at night, so I don't really get an opportunity to see the people and get to know the different organizations in my community, but because of this job I get to do that. Like, what other job can I just go into, the police station and say, can you give me a ride along, because I want to know what you do every day, and show me what that's like, and they did that. Or going to the fire station. Just maybe 2 weeks ago, I was able to go and wear full firefighter gear, and we went into a home that they're going to demolish anyway, and they put out fake smoke, and they made us, well, not made, we requested it, but they allowed us to go in with full firefighter gear to try to rescue a mannequin. And I mean, that was such an eye-opening experience, and I wouldn't have had that otherwise. And so yes, stressful, but also really great. Yeah. Yes.
What are some of the most rewarding experiences you've had because of your job?
Well, in addition to attending all these events and listening to people, we do a lot of constituent services. So constituent services are essentially people who have real life issues in the community, and we work with them to address those issues. And being able to, so even though I have not passed any bill, and we don't really get the gratification of that yet, because I've been in office for 10 months, but we have the gratification of seeing people's problems, being able to help them solve those problems. So for instance, just last week we had a woman call in, and she has a child with disability, and they had some issues, and my team and I were able to help her solve that, and now the child is doing much better, and that makes me feel like I've contributed something to that, and that was really rewarding. But that's just one example of many constituent services and issues that we deal with every day in the 4 communities I represent. Yes?
Are there any people who have strongly inspired you?
Absolutely. Many people have inspired me through the years. And I mean, to be able to meet Justice Sotomayor, who's a trailblazer in her own right, she's an inspiration. Ruth RBG, as we like to call her, has really been a great influence in my life. But in addition to that, we have had so many women, and not only nationally but in our state, who've contributed so much. We just passed a bill that would create a women's trail throughout Massachusetts to show where women have made contributions, and I recommend that many of you check that out. But these are the people who've inspired me and continue to inspire me. But even every day, people inspire me. My campaign, we brought together over 800 volunteers. Many of them are women with young children, door knocking for me, people, older people who couldn't even drive, but who couldn't even walk, but they drove me to different events. So many people came out and support, and these are the people who continue to inspire me every day, because they show me that civic engagement is something that lasts a lifetime, and it allows you to really connect with other people and connect with the community, and they inspire me to do my job now. I saw a question, yes.
If you could have any other job, what would it be?
Any other job? Well, you know what? I thought about this. Perhaps on my longer term plan is perhaps look into becoming a judge. I mean, you know, I've been an attorney and I've seen the impact that judges could have, and that could be something I'm considering. But for right now, I love this position, and I think I'm going to be here for a little bit if people continue to elect me here. Good question. It made me think for a little bit. What do I want to be? There's so many things. I'm only in my 30s, so I have a lot of options I could consider, and I'm excited for that, the fact that I have so many opportunities. Questions, concerns? Yes?
So with the new funding, how much reform in the education should we expect?
I'm sorry?
So over the years, with the new funding for the schools, how much reform?
Okay, so the bill. Yep, so the bill basically would include several things that would benefit especially this town of North Andover. So for the first time ever, we're including transportation for special education, so that will be coming from the state instead of the town being responsible for that. We are also including more funding to help with healthcare benefits for, you know, the people who work for the schools. We're also putting more money not only for transportation for special education, but circuit breaker, and the formula itself would give more money per student, and will allow the school, so all, especially North Andover, would see an increase from the state. But are you talking about any other, is there specific areas? Okay, great. Yes?
You said that you don't do funding for private high schools, but do you do it for technical high schools? Because I know they're not considered private.
Say that again, what high school?
Technical high school.
Oh yes, no, they are public, so we do fund technical schools, absolutely. So it's just the private schools, because they're privately funded, that we do not fund them.
I didn't know which,
Yeah,
how they were considered.
Yeah, so public schools, technical schools, as well as charter schools, all come from state funding. Yeah. Good question. And you know, it's only not the K to 12 level. We also fund community colleges and state schools as well for college, like the UMasses and Salem State and other schools around us. Yep. Other questions?
How do you go about writing a bill? Like, what's your process?
So essentially, some of the bills that I came in were bills that I've already thought about prior to getting elected, and so I drafted them, and then there's House Counsel, and they work with us for more of the technical things, you know, because I was a first-time rep, and it was within the first month of being in office, so I just wanted to make sure that we run it by House Counsel so they can go through any technical changes, and then we talk to experts to try to because the deadline was so short, I wasn't able to put in all the changes right away, so we just filed something as somewhat of a draft, and then we work with experts to try to then make amendments to make it better. And even now, we're still working on many of the bills because I don't know what I don't know, and I want to make sure that I incorporate the things that the experts are telling me, and community groups and others who have who are interested in particular bills. I have a bill that I'm excited about to address discrimination based on height and weight. That is not something that's protected in our state, and so we want to make sure that those who have claims because they're being discriminated against based on their height and weight could, you know, file something in court to protect them, and that's something I'm actively working on right now. I'm actually meeting with a group of experts next week to go over it. Yes. Anything else? Are you guys tired? Are you hungry? Is that it? You asked all your questions to the senator.
Did they ask you about your dogs?
Oh.
They did in the other classroom, so.
Oh, I know. I have 3 dogs that I showcase a lot because we do a lot of walking around, and I actually go to a lot of the festivals and I try to bring them because I don't see them as often. But I have 2 Boston Terriers. Their names are Derby and Daisy, and I have a dachshund that we adopted named Bruno. And Bruno is the favorite among all the volunteers because the other 2 are shy, but he jumps and hugs and kisses everyone. So when we had volunteers last year, I think they all came because they wanted to hang out with Bruno. Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah, anything else? Go ahead.
How old are your dogs?
How old are they? Okay, so and I have to think of them. So Derby was born in 2008. He's 11. Daisy's 10, and Bruno's 4 years old. Yeah, he's really cute.
Being an immigrant, how do you feel that affects you in your daily life? And
Being an immigrant affecting me on my daily life? I mean, it depends on what aspect of my life. Are you talking about personally or career-wise? I think that is a hard question in that I'm not just an immigrant, right? I have many parts of me that make up who I am. I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman of color, I'm the first person in my family to go to college, for instance. So all these identities make up who I am, and I don't know how it directly impacts me, but I know for sure that it gives me a different perspective, and that's the perspective that I try to bring to the State House and try to make sure that my colleagues understand. And I think that that's exactly why diversity is a value in and of itself, is that I have lived experiences that others may not have, and I'm able to incorporate that in my daily work. And so for instance, I did bring that up in my speech recently, as I told you, on the education bill, and I talked about why it's so important for us to invest in public education, because I learned English as a second language when I came here at 5 years old. And that's because of the resources that were afforded to me through the public school system, and that was the perspective that I was able to share with my colleagues about why they should be voting for that particular bill. And they did, unanimously, which is great. Yes?
You mentioned that you like to sing. Do you have like a favorite artist or a favorite song to sing?
Oh, I have a lot of songs that I like to sing to now, but I have not sung for a very long time. So, yes, there are many songs, and I sometimes even go to karaoke with my friends now. But, let's see, what is my favorite song? Oh, I love Cyndi Lauper, time after time. But I like to, we like to sing along. My sisters and I, we're all very into music, and so we keep each other entertained. But you know that the senator also sings a lot too, so one of these days I'm going to have a karaoke battle with her. Anyone else? Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see you there.
What's the worst part of your job?
The worst part, I mentioned earlier, the emails. Oh my gosh. So I had this whole thing. So for me, I like to read all the emails, and there's no time during the day, so I then can't sleep until I read all of them. And I end up staying very late till 2 in the morning sometimes to read them. So that is the worst part of the job, is to deal with that admin work, because I like to be out and about during the day, and as you can see, I'm not checking my emails now, so that means more of them are piling up for later on. But the time management, I think that's the whole point, is that time management is very tough, to try to prioritize what events I need to be at, what events I need to get to, and responding to the people who need something urgent first, and then going to everything else. All of that is are things that my office and my legislative aide and I try to keep up with, but it doesn't always pan out. And so we unfortunately can't respond to every person right away unless it's something really urgent, and sometimes we have to just push meetings off. But we want to make time for things like this, And so that has been a challenge that we're still working on. Still 10 months in. Yes?
Have you received any hate, in the form of emails, or just hate in general for bills that you're working on?
It's not hate, it's more disagreement. So yeah, we hear from people who disagree with us all the time, and I actually want that because I want to make sure I'm seeing why they disagree with something, and I actually tend to call people back to have conversations because I think it's easier to say harsher things through email than actually having that conversation. So I try to call people back and really talk to them, like why? And can I explain to you why I take this position that may not coincide with yours? And so far it's worked out really well. Good question. Yes. Yes.
I'm just going to turn to the one that you that you made the emails. Just a question. What's the highest amount of emails you've ever had in your inbox? Unread emails.
No, well, I have to say, I don't know, in the 100, I mean, there's, right now, if I look at my email right now, you'll see 300 unread emails just right off the bat because there are just a lot of things that they're not constituents. They're just like, I'm on every single mailing list under the sun. I just kind of have to go through them to delete them. But I think the most I've ever had was probably 800 when I had events back to back for 3 days straight and didn't get a chance to keep up with the emails. But they come in all the time. Hundreds come in each day, so we have to work on them every single day. All right. Anyone? Yes.
Are there like parts of like who you are or what you've like been through that you think give you like a leg up or an advantage in like your job and your career?
Absolutely. I come from, I had the opportunities and resources from this community to be the first to go to college and then to law school. Those are things that have been very beneficial to me. And these opportunities are things that I want to make sure others have as well. And that's why I'm working so hard to provide these opportunities for everyone else. But that is a leg up for me. I think that having a solid education and actually working as an attorney in legal services to see how different policies and laws impact vulnerable people and how we can work together to address those. Those are things, perspectives that I constantly bring up. Because for bills, I can bring up actual examples from clients that I've worked with to show exactly why something needs to be changed. Yes?
When did you decide, like, how far were you into college when you decided you wanted to go to, like, law school?
So I got my internship in legal services when I was a junior, and then my senior year I decided that I should apply to law school, and I actually got into law school right away, but decided not to go because I got an opportunity working for the Census 2010. So, and that was actually one of the most rewarding experience because I got to go into the community to talk to people and understand why they were so hesitant to participate in the census and other issues surrounding the census, and that was actually what encouraged me to be even more civically engaged and then go to law school to work on particular issues that came up during that time.
So I think what I want to do now, because we are getting pretty close to lunch, first of all, could everyone please give Tram a round of applause? I want to say for, Mr. Gonsalves and I were talking in the hallway, Ms. Sparks, Ms. Darman, Ms. Bean, all the teachers, you made us very, very proud today. I know being in a room for 2 hours, although with 2 speakers, is not always the easiest thing to do. And you guys have been very respectful, and I thought the quality of questions were excellent. So what we're going to do is, at 12:07, as always, you're going to go to lunch. And then you're going to come back to this room, and Rick Gorman is going to do a presentation. It's about 35 minutes, so it's a little shorter, all right? But what I do want to do, just to give an opportunity for you guys to stretch before you go to lunch, or if you'd like to come up and say hello to Tram and talk to her, that would be great. I told Tram this in the other class. There are these awards that I'm giving out every month called the NAMS Civic Agent of the Month Award. And could I have the 4 Civic Agents of the Month, oh, 6, right? Who was the Civic Agent of the Month last month? Can you raise your hand so Tram can see you?
Whoa.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So those students were recognized for various aspects of being engaged in my civics class. And I have some more people here. And the people who do get these awards, and I'm planning on giving out a lot of awards,
they are going to be invited to a breakfast. I had a breakfast with those 10 people last week, and the wonderful people at Dunkin' Donuts down at Quick Pick sponsor a breakfast for us. So you'll have a breakfast, these people as well. So I'd like to award these people. I'm going to go to the 86 class first. So the 86 class, for his unique perspective on issues, he always brings a very unique perspective. I'd like to give the NAMS AP Civics Agent of the Month Award to Ethan. Ethan, if you'd like to come up, please. Congratulations, that's for you. Okay, and the second person that I'm going to recognize from 86. 86 is the class I have first all the time. And sometimes when you have classes first the whole time, it's kind of painful the first 15, 20 minutes. It's never painful in 86. They are out the box every single Monday morning. I have them. Wow. It's just all the classes are great. But sometimes when you have a class for the first time, it's tough. So this young lady, I'd like to recognize her non-stop effort and civic enthusiasm. She's not very loud about it, but I can tell that she's an enthusiastic student. So Gabby or Gabrielle Hardy, I'd like you to...
She did ask a very good question.
Absolutely. So now we're going to move to 81. 81 obviously is another awesome class. 81 is never a dull moment in that class. We always have a really good time. The first person I'd like to focus on and give an award to, for her focus and overall civic spirit, again, not a very outgoing person that's really loud, but person who always, you can tell that they're in the zone in class. Hannah Topping, I'd like to recognize you, please. All right, moving on to 81. Moving on to 81. And wait a minute, I'm missing an award, so I will grab that award. So I'll go to 81 first. Actually, I'll go to 82. I'll go to 82. And then I gotta find my other 81 award because I think it's in my folder. So for his non-stop contributions to class, and 82 is a great class like the others, Nathaniel, I'd like to recognize you, sir. Nice job. Congratulations. Nice job. 82, I'm going to recognize another person, 82, for her outstanding civic participation. She's always raising her hand. She's always trying to, get part of the conversation. And I've had the privilege of knowing her a couple years because of history camp, and I was really looking forward to working with her, and it's been great. Ashlyn, I'd like to recognize you. All right, so now I'm going to find my other awards, so I'm sorry. This doesn't happen at the Academy Awards. Oh boy. So, here's what we're going to do. I will find the award after lunch, or I will do a new award, but this person is still going to be recognized. So the person whose award, actually no, wait a minute. I just gave it out of order. So I did have enough awards. I'm sorry, they were just out of sequence. So the last award is 81, because I already gave an 81 award. So the last person that I want to recognize for his continued contributions to class. He always makes a contribution, whether he agrees or disagrees with the lesson. He's always getting involved in the class. And again, not really a very loud, outgoing person, but a person that does get involved in the class from 81. Sam, I'd like to recognize you, sir. If it's okay, could I have the award winners with Tram at the podium? I'm such a dad, I want to get a picture of all the award winners, all right?
Thanks, cheese. Yahtzee. I got two.
Wait, I want to do a selfie first, wait.
Do a selfie, hold on.
All right, we can do this. Get it this way, everyone this way. I have to get everyone. Everyone get it, I want to be a part of this. Ready? You got it? 1, 2, 3. Wait, one more. 1, 2, 3.